I'm at Bethpage State Park, which is in Long Island, New York. And this is a 1,500 acre public access park that has 5 golf courses, including Bethpage Black, which is hosting the 2025 Ryder Cup. I'm here to meet Andrew Wilson, who's the Director of Agronomy for this whole state park. And we're here to talk about the work he's been doing over the last 30 years to create a wildlife haven. This place is surrounded by suburban New York, but Andrew and his team have been doing some incredible work, and we're going to be finding out a little bit about that today, but also how he's been sharing that work with the local community. It's a great case study of how you can create and manage a beautiful place and share it with the wider community. So let's go and find out. I met up with Andrew on the Black Course and a hole that doubles up as a signature par 5 and a wildlife garden.
So this is the Black Course signature hole, the 4th hole. It's one of the prettiest par 5s in golf, especially for a hole that doesn't involve, an ocean or a river or a body of water. So I think this is the sort of the moment where people playing the Black Course see it and they're like, oh, now I get it. Now I get the hole. It's a little intimidating with the elevation changes, and it's just a gorgeous hole. To the left is also where Vic's Valley is. That's where our first wildlife garden came about. So yeah, I mean, world famous hole, and 100 yards off the rough is our wildlife garden. We are in Vic's Valley. This is a songbird wildlife garden that got started about 20 years ago. It used to be an old wood chip pile. When we announced the US Open in 1997, this was an area of concern that we couldn't have a giant wood chip pile next to the championship hole and course and all that. Our horticulturalist Victor Azaretto started his labor of love and has turned this into kind of a thriving garden over the past 2 decades. Some of the songbird gardens, you can even still see some fruit that's been drying over the years. There's Clethra alnifolia, there are cranberry bushes, basically we try to go as close to native as possible. Even some other, we can take a little advice from other plants that we find in other areas of the park and try to use those here. There's also, it used to be a little bigger in terms of how many plants were here, and then part of Victor's work here is also finding out what we can actually maintain. So some of it we've actually made a little more of a grassy area. You can see the spring birds, the robins are starting to come out. About 7 or 8 years ago we added beehives, so we have honeybees here as well. The area over to our right here is kind of barren at the moment, but then the horticultural staff will work on Jerusalem artichokes and some other big ironweed, joe pie weed, all sorts of different native pollinator plants that attract a lot of butterfly weed in the area, milkweed. And so, yeah, it's just a nice little spot it's a wildlife habitat spot. Pretty interesting. We always get asked, sometimes the tournaments really see these areas like, ooh, hospitality, and we have to tell them, no hospitality here. And they've always, they back off immediately. But during the PGA Championship, we had Brooks Koepka teeing off on the 5th tee, which is just over the hill. And, we have the beehives in the background. So, yeah, these things can cohabitate. The honeybees today, they were active earlier in the week. We might see a few. Typically, their insect activity is usually a little more related to temperature. You can really see, there are a few honeybees coming out right there. So now they're starting out in the springtime to forage whatever plants or flowers might be available to them now. That's also a purpose of a goal of Victor and our horticultural staff is to plant food sources for the whole year, to make sure we have spring, fall, and whatever winter habitat we can help provide. That's kind of what we're here to do. And our volunteer beekeepers also come by several times in the winter too, to check on how the bees are doing. And yeah, it's been a fun little project. And we get a few jars of honey out of the deal. So these are honeybees, and the honeybees usually get the attention because of the honey, but there are many other pollinators that are equally as important, whether they're mason bees or even carpenter bees, or moths can be pollinators, as little flies and all sorts of winged insects here can be pollinators as well. So the honeybee may be like the movie star of the bees, but there are plenty other ones that you don't make a movie with just the stars. There's plenty of background support. So the same way with the insect community and the pollinator community needs the same sort of ecosystem, where similarly people like to think that pretty flowers are pollinator flowers, but sometimes trees and clover, and like clover is one that sometimes for a golf course You know, if we see it on the fairways, we might try to get rid of it, but in other areas of the golf course, we don't do anything to it. We just let it be because it is a valuable source of food for other insects in the park.
Wildlife conservation on the golf courses began with birds. I asked Andrew how it all started.
In the late 80s, early 90s, a golfer by the name of Jim Jones loved playing golf here, and he would look up and he would see, wow, they have red-tailed hawks here. And then he was here sometimes early enough where he'd hear some great horned owls. And he approached our park director and asked if he could start documenting our activity for these raptors. And that was sort of the genesis. And then I think for about 30 years, he's also been here producing raptor reports for us every year, and he'll work with us and he'll tell us, hey guys, there's nesting activity on the 7th hole. Could we hold off on any pruning or anything in those areas? And he'll let us know cycles of nature too. I mean, some years we might have 7 or 8 chicks park-wide, and some years we don't get any, and he has all that documented, and a lot of fun success stories. It's another way where he'll bring people into the park, whether they're high school students or other wildlife rescue type groups, and he's been a great asset to us for decades now. We have a park ecologist, and she actually has a few volunteer birders as well, and especially in the spring that we're approaching now, they'll start checking all the boxes, and the eastern bluebird is New York State's state bird. So that's what we're trying to attract. Typically it's bluebirds, tree swallows, and sometimes we'll get some invasive birds in there that they'll try to roust out of the boxes, but it's just another aspect of what we're trying to do to promote and even just document what we have, just to say this is what we have here. Sometimes we'll see patterns and not understand them, and other times we'll see patterns of success and try to repeat them, and patterns of failure we try to eliminate.
Andrew then told me why he thought it was important to communicate sustainability projects, even if things don't always go to plan.
Engaging the local community, I think sometimes golf courses can be a little insular. And if you don't engage the local community, then sometimes that story will get told for you. Sometimes, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You have to maybe start small, expect some failures. I think that's what it is too. Hopefully you have the right membership and the right clientele or the public that will sort of be understanding of that. But I think typically intention, people will understand if you're going into things with good intentions, then they will have that patience for what we're trying to do.
Water for irrigation is a challenge for many golf courses, especially in cities. I asked Andrew about water sources for Bethpage and the use of new technology to reduce consumption.
We have 2 groundwater wells, but it's about 18 years now. We had a local landfill that was capped, and they were testing water for any sort of contaminants that might be in there into a local storm basin that we worked with the local township, and we're now using about 60% of our water comes from that basin. So it's recycled water basically from an old landfill. I'd say about 2010 is when we started with the moisture meters. So, each superintendent and the black horse started using moisture meters, and the technology started getting better and better. We have Spiio sensors in the park now too. So, we don't even need the moisture meters that we were using, or we still use. That comes down to a human being physically being there. And now that we can have sensors in the ground that will give us information, will we be able to know how much it rained or what the temperature is at 10 o'clock, the soil temperature is at 10 o'clock at night, and then again at 4 in the morning. Hopefully it's just those fine margins that will help us conserve water a little bit, help us to hopefully just kind of keep dialing things in a little bit. It's helping us out so much.
Andrew has worked at Bethpage State Park since he was 17 and grew up nearby. I asked him how important it was to him to successfully balance hosting the Ryder Cup with the resident wildlife which lives here all year round.
There are some people you might not be able to convert, and I think some of what we've probably talked a little bit about was when we get to tell our own story, whether it's through our Raptor specialist, our gardens, some of the things we can tell people at local conferences. We are sort of the people's country club, so people can come out here. It's hard to think of what else this land could be. Maybe sometimes we make a misstep or we work in the wrong direction for a little while, but the intentions are good, and that's what we're trying to promote golf, promote the ecology in general. Hopefully people can, hit their shot over this bunker behind us and then see a red-tailed hawk and be like, wow, that was a good day. They're leaving Bethpage maybe a little tired, a little sunburnt, but with a smile on their face and saying, well, I want to go back there. I'd love to get back there someday.
One of the interesting things about coming here and speaking to Andrew is that he's a very humble leader. He's very quiet, but he commands respect. There's quite clearly a very deep love of this environment, a place that he spent nearly 3 decades. And that kind of quiet leadership, that respect for the environment is really quite telling. Next time I'm off to the Nature Discovery Garden, where I meet a horticulturalist who is welcoming school children onto the golf courses to learn about plants and animals.
Nature is connected to everything that we do. It is everything. I'm really excited to be a part of the Ryder Cup and highlight our native plants and the things that we do with ecological horticulture. There's not a lot of education about plants and ecology in general. We need to be stewards of the environment. We should be responsible for caring for it, and that's my passion.